Hello and welcome to Season 4, Episode 45 of Logicast, the AWS News podcast brought to you by Logicata. I'm Karl Robinson, CEO and co-founder of Logicata, and I'm joined today, as always, but with a new job title. I can't remember if we used it on the last recording of the podcast.
I think we did.
But we may milk it like we often do milk things. So I am joined today by Principal Cloud Engineer Jon Goodall. How are you doing today, Jon?
Oh, my foot hurts still, but I actually worked out why my foot hurts.
Is it because you're now Principal Cloud Engineer?
No, it's because I am now here we go, get the medals out. I am now two-time national champion in Gokan-Ryu karate within my category.
It's congratulations to both, Jon. Wow.
It's unrelated to the karate entirely. I hurt my foot walking the kids to school and then didn't rest because nationals was coming up.
And he's gone.
I think that sometimes happens, is what I heard. And there he's back.
Yeah, he's back now. So, I don't know what happened there, but he disappeared.
He got too excited, I guess. He pressed Control V, I would say.
We shall muddle through. I walked the kids to school. I was training very hard. Walked the kids to school. It went twinge, and I just ignored it for 3 weeks. So now I can't train for a month, which is annoying the hell out of me. But worth it.
The trophy cabinet is now burgeoning because you do, of course, have the challenge coin for winning the the workshop at ComSum.
Oh yeah, that lives on my desk.
Yeah. Oh, you have disappointed me though, Jon, because I did expect there to be some sort of trophy cabinet somewhere that you're keeping all these things in.
Funny thing is, I didn't get a trophy. I got these 2 medals. Only black belts got trophies for some reason. I think it's because they had 20 or 30 trophies or something silly. But when you break it out into non-black belt categories, you're broken down by grade and age, because it would be very unfair for me to fight someone your age, Karl, because, you're in reasonable health for a man in his 50s. But, I was in a category of 18 to 34, and I'm the old guy in that category. But, you wouldn't want to fight a 20-year-old. And then equally, it'd be very unfair of me to go and fight a child or a black belt because, children can run around me. And black belts are scary.
Well, there we go. Maybe next time you will get a trophy and you can have a trophy cabinet. We could always get the medals framed into some kind of special presentation.
At the minute, they're just they live on a hook over all my kit at the minute.
Well, there we go. Let's introduce our guest before we get too far into the episode. We're very lucky to be joined again is it the 3rd time or the 4th time now by AWS Hero Johannes Koch. How are you doing today, Johannes?
I am doing fine. It's the 4th time, if I remember correctly. Yeah, thanks again for having me. And let's see. Let's have some fun together.
Thank you very much for coming back. Well, you've been having way too much fun, I believe, because today's episode is all about what went on at reInvent last week. And Jon and I did not make it to Las Vegas this year, but you did again, Johannes. So how was Vegas in 2026?
Vegas was good and exciting, but as you know, always very tiring as well, right? So you get home pretty exhausted and you don't sleep for a week. But you meet a bunch of cool people, get together with some AWS folks that you haven't met before. You make new friends, and I think it's really exciting to meet people in person. And we missed you both, especially on the hike.
Yeah, well, we enjoyed the hike last year. I enjoyed the hike last year. I'm not going to speak for Jon. He might not have enjoyed it this year because he's got a sore foot. So maybe he wouldn't have made the hike this year. But I definitely enjoyed the hike last year. And I hope to be joining you guys again next year.
I enjoyed it last year. I did. Although I got about 3 or 4K in and went, I regret this decision because I took the hard one and I don't hike quite a lot. And I was not in great shape last year.
Well, it would have been completely different this year, right? So...
Well, the funny thing is we were talking about sleep, and that was actually my best night's sleep after the AWS Community Builders hike last year. It all went horribly pear-shaped after that from a sleep perspective for the rest of the week. But
nothing to do with all the beer. Nothing to do with that.
Yeah, possibly. But just curious, Johannes, aside from all the amazing announcements, some of which we're going to talk about shortly, what was your highlight of the week in terms of things you attended or did or whatever?
Great question. I was fortunate to attend the AWS Transform event on Monday. So for those that have seen that, they kind of blew up off a rack from 100 meters, and that really kind of exploded that in order to showcase how they are fighting technical debt. That was pretty good. And then, the small moments, like meeting people, were the ones that are highlight for me. Talk to some really important people on the AWS side, right? That was really good. I had a mentee coming from India that she left India for the first time in her life, and she got the All Builders Welcome Grant, and she has been my mentee for 4 years. So that was really exciting to get her to reinvent. And then I think last but not least, I think the Werner keynote was. While the keynote maybe was not the best one, it was a moment where like he's given his last keynote of reinvent, so there was an emotional kind of thing as well for the heroes. So I think it was that was another exciting moment, I would say.
That sounds like quite a lot of exciting moments. And as you know, John and I are big fans of swag, and reInvent is just, amazing for swag. What was the best piece of swag that you got this year?
Oh gosh, this is a hard question. I would say, so I didn't pick up much swag because I'm personally not a swag fan. I have too much stuff that you can then at the end not really use. I think the best piece of swag this year, I would say, was a cocktail shaker that I got. That was really good. And then we got some swag from the heroes where I think that was also a pretty good one. So in general, I would say swag was still a thing this year. What was funny was there was a dev quest at the end where you could go through different things and kind of earn more swags that was all around the expo in the Builders Loft. That was pretty fun. Would have been something for John to do. But the swag there was also pretty good. I didn't finish the last level because I didn't have enough time, but I think that was an interesting idea as well.
Nice. And last question about reInvent. Did you get a tattoo?
No. I'm not a tattoo person. But I know some people that
did get a tattoo.
Yeah.
What did they have tattoos of?
Oh, I don't know. But I know that some people did. I saw them coming in and out, but it's not my thing.
Yeah, fair enough. No. I do have a tattoo, but it's not an AWS tattoo.
Tell us more.
Oh, it's my wife's name on my wrist.
Okay.
Arabic script.
The normal one at the end, right?
Of Arabic.
It's not the Kiro logo.
No,
it's nothing to do with AWS, as far as I'm aware.
Pretty disappointed now, Karl.
So anyway, there we go. We talked about the all of the things around the fringe of reInvent, but let's get into the meat of it, because obviously it is AWS's biggest annual conference where we see a lot of product and feature launches, etc. I did a blog post last week recapping the 36 that I counted major announcements from the keynote on the second day of the conference. And one thing I noticed this year, which I'm sure anybody who did attend the keynote or watch the keynote online noticed, was that it was all about AI. 2 hours of AI, and then 10 minutes, literally against the clock, of 25 announcements across the rest of the business, which is the stuff that most of us actually are using on a day-to-day basis. So we're actually flipping it around a little bit. We're going to talk about the stuff that we actually use, and then perhaps come on a little bit to AI at the end of this episode, because obviously you can't ignore it. It is what is going on in the world right now. Let's take a look at a few of the articles or a few of the announcements that we've picked out to talk about today. And the first one is Lambda Managed Instances, serverless simplicity with EC2 flexibility. So this seems to be serverless on servers. Got to admit, I don't actually get it why you'd want to run serverless on servers. But John, you're a serverless community builder. So what are your thoughts on running serverless on servers?
I don't know that this counts as a reInvent announcement because it came out on the 30th, so it's still sort of in the pre-invent category. But if you weren't paying attention, you might have missed it in the maelstrom of noise. So the traditional kind of way, I say traditional, serverless hasn't been around for very long, but the traditional way of thinking about serverless is there are no servers. I mean, there are, but you don't have to care about them, right? You give AWS your code and they run it. And that's kind of it. There was a few issues with that, sort of feature limitations. You had limited runtime, which this doesn't necessarily address that, but another announcement kind of does, and we might talk about that. And you had cold starts, which have been getting progressively better and better and better to the point where I forget the stat, but it's single-digit percentages now of production serverless workloads actually have cold starts. So it's much more of a perceived problem because you see it in development environments, but you don't really see it outside of there. What this is doing is solving for that cold start problem utterly and completely in probably the best way I could have come up with, because the other couple of ways of solving for that have been just keep hitting your Lambda every so often, which is a bit sort of silly, or provisioned concurrency. So it's there, it's hot, it's running. Cool. What this is doing, and I may have misunderstood the provision thing, but I'm sure Johannes will correct me. What this is doing is this is basically exposing sort of the servers behind the covers, is the way I'm reading this. And what that's doing is it changes the billing model a little bit, but cold starts are just not there, right? The servers are up, they're hot, they're running. Your Lambdas will just run on them. They're pre-deployed and kind of all the rest of it.
Is that true? I'm just questioning that. So I don't think it does. So as far as I understand, the managed instances will not remove cold starts, because the containers will still, individual machines will still need to be booted on the EC2 machines in the same way, right? So there's no change in that behavior. The main challenge here is, or the main change here is, that you as an end user get the possibility to fully decide on the used instance types or the used technology under the hood, right? And that only is that, and the only change then is that the Lambda will now directly use your instances. You don't get the noisy neighbor anymore, and you have the possibility to actually, decide about, I want to have a very networking provisioned instance or very memory provisioned instance, as far as I understood that.
Well, the announcement claims it eliminates cold starts.
It does?
It does. It claims it, I suppose, and nothing on the internet is ever untrue, so it must be true. But yes, no, it does claim that it eliminates it. It's a good point. But yeah, that's what AWS are telling us. It does make an interesting change to the billing model, I find, because you do have to pay for the EC2 instances to exist, whereas obviously with Lambda, you just pay for what you're using. But it actually makes those servers more expensive, because you pay for the EC2s to exist, and then you pay a management fee on top of that, and then you still pay the per request fee for your Lambdas, but you don't pay the execution fee because that's somewhere else. So this actually makes your Lambdas more expensive, I think, even unless you're at this ridiculous level of concurrency. And noisy neighbor is an interesting one, because you become your own neighbor effectively. So you have to worry about being thread safe and isolation and all that, which you should be doing anyway, but you didn't have to so much with managed Lambda. So this solves for cold starts, allegedly, but it causes you more problems, but things you have to think about. It's a really interesting function as a service, but you can pay for the infrastructure as well. It doesn't really kind of roll off the tongue that cleanly.
Yeah, true. And well, it's similar to the billing model for EKS Auto Mode, right? Where you also get the 15% or roughly 15% plus. I think that's just this managed instances feature in general that EC2 team has built, right? At the end, that is being reused here under the hood.
Yeah, because we saw ECS managed instances recently.
That's the same thing, yeah.
Shortly followed by this announcement about Lambda managed instances. So,
yeah, it's interesting, and this is why I like things like compute savings plans, because it's still just more compute, so you can still get your discounts and things locked in. You can, I don't know if you can use spot instances for these. You might be able to. I don't know. It's really interesting, though. It's really interesting because the lines between this is IaaS, this is platform, this is function, this is managed for you, it's becoming incredibly blurry, because this is still, you're not managing the execution environment, but you have to you provision the servers yourself, and then you make them available. Or this confuses me massively, and I don't think I'm going to use it, but I don't think I'm the target market for it, so that kind of makes sense.
Who is the target market for it?
I would say organizations that have a very large consumption of Lambda and want to be able to use complete computer savings plans in a better way, right? Because I think, Jon, you talked about the pricing structure, right? Now, with most of the compute being moved into the EC2 costs at the end, you are actually able to use the EC2 compute savings plan, which gives a little bit better discounts than the general compute savings plan, right? And I think that might be something that will help.
I guess it also makes the pricing a bit more predictable.
Yes, I mean yes and no, because you still pay the per request fee, but that's not very high. That's not very high. You certainly will see. It depends on how your internal billing models are looking as well, I guess, because if you care about your EC2 line item specifically, it just moves numbers around on the spreadsheet a bit.
True. Yeah. True.
Well,
I think one thing to call
sorry,
one thing, John, to call out is maybe the support of the different languages, right? Not all languages are supported out of the box, and I'm not sure, but I think custom runtimes are also not directly supported.
Yeah, so
Didn't
what
read
we're
that.
seeing here is latest versions of Node.js, Java, .NET, and Python with other stuff coming soon, which I find a little bit interesting because if they can do it on servers that they're managing, why can't they do it on servers that I've given them if it's all just a container anyway? I don't get that. Doesn't really make sense to me.
It doesn't make sense,
that I'm
no.
running not that I'm running Rust lambdas anyway to care. So
yeah, I think it is covering. It was covering Python, so it should be all right for your lambdas. But you're not running them at a scale enough that to matter here, I don't think. So. Anyway, sticking with the subject of pricing, let's move on to our what I think is probably most people's favorite announcement from the keynote last week, and that is database savings plans. So it was actually the last announcement in the keynote, and it did get a bit of a cheer from the audience. I don't know if you were in Matt Garman's keynote last week, Johannes, but there did seem to be a bit of a cheer coming from the heroes section of the audience when database savings plans were announced.
I don't know if it was only the heroes. I think some heroes were excited, but not everyone. It was definitely from the announcements that came out, and one of the ones that got most attention, I would say, especially because there is popular faces that have been calling out this missing thing for a while. And I talked to Corey last week. He was really excited about this one, right? So I think. I personally don't know if that's going to be making that much of a difference, but maybe you have some ideas on that, John. What do you think?
Yeah, I kind of went up and down this one a little bit because it's something I've been asking for a while. And on the whole, I mean, I'm a less excitable person than Corey generally anyway, so I'm not I'm not going to get that excited. So that's kind of not my personality. But I did go up and down this announcement, and generally it's a good thing. Okay, I've been asking for this sort of thing for a very, very long time, because having savings plans for EC2 and then for compute, fine, lovely, great, love them very much, and they make my life a lot easier. Having to then go and do reserved instances and reserved nodes for other things, for RDS, for Elasticache, because they're reserved nodes rather than instances, but like whatever, was just deeply, deeply confusing. I don't quite understand why they didn't include them, and now they do, sort of. So you have your own flavor of savings plan. It's a database savings plan. It's not an overall savings plan. And Corey asked for this, and I think I did as well in my kind of take on this one, is what I'd really desperately like is here's all of the services that you can have a savings plan for, and it's just all included in the one place, right? That just makes everybody's lives a lot easier. I was generally quite impressed with this because it does cover serverless, and savings plans covering serverless is great because if you have reasonably steady state run within serverless, or you have kind of spiky usage but minimum usages, then that's great, right? Because you can have some level of discount as well. And we've got some customers within our customer base that this might apply to. I was a little bit disappointed on the server side of things because whilst the services included are, it's a very big list. It's RDS, it's Aurora, it's Dynamo, it's Elasticache, it's DocumentDB, it's Neptune, Keyspaces, TimeStream, and database migration service. Who's using that for a year? Yes, I know people do. I'm saying that to be deliberately rage baity because rage bait's great for engagement. It's not everything. It's not every single thing within each of those services that's going to be included. Right? Within RDS, it's only very, very recent instance types. Within Elasticache, it's only Valkey. It's not Redis. It's not Memcache, the other one. I have to think that for a minute. So this is kind of, you get database savings plans and it's all of these things, but actually it's not most of those things. Sorry.
And it's also only 1 year and not 3 year, as I understand it. So what are your thoughts, Johannes, on this?
Yeah, similar to John. I think I understand the excitement for most of the people around this being available now, right? But I'm not sure if it's possible to estimate database workloads that much, right? It depends on how your application grows and behaves, right? You don't really know if you're gonna be able to commit, right? And I don't know I think it calls out up to 35% savings, which I don't know if that's a good or a bad number, right? I would say for
It's better than
EC2,
nothing.
that is true, yeah. But is that really going to change your decision on using a database or not using a database?
Maybe, maybe not, right? The 35% is on the serverless side of things. And if before you could have none and now you could have up to 35%. So for me, I bias towards serverless anyway, but it does make me more willing to start to recommend serverless database options to our customers because okay, scale from 0 to not 0 takes 15 seconds. So you can't really recommend that for an ecom client, but you can recommend, well, we can stick you at a minimum half and then we can reserve that. And your minimum half costs 65% of that half. And the half doesn't cost you a lot to start with, right? So we can reserve you this kind of really, really low level and get it reasonably cheap. And then you don't have to think about scaling it anymore. So problem goes away. That's something of a not niche, but that's something of a not quite central case. It's a moderate edge case. I can see it kind of happening more and more. But yeah, don't know if it's going to make my choice of database more likely, because like in a non-prod environment, my serverless environment is going to scale to 0 anyway most of the time, so I don't care.
Yeah, and it does not cover the usual suspects of SQL Server, right? So I think it does not, right? It's mainly on the AWS specific databases. So
yeah, it's the whole 3-year thing though is an interesting one, right? Because as you say, you can't necessarily predict your workloads 3 years out, but you could still buy 3-year reserved instances. So
yeah, true.
You can buy it this way in your unpredictable workload. You could buy it anyway if you like, because yes, depending on the business, you may or may not be able to predict your usage 3 years out. We've absolutely seen it before where it's just been a static environment for 5+ years and you could save loads of money by going, oh yeah, we'll just bang a 3-year in. Okay, hindsight's perfect vision, but a lot of database workloads for not necessarily high transaction, high turnover businesses, but lower end stuff or WordPress stuff that just tends to be reasonably small and static if it's a reasonably consistent workload. So would that make a difference to the purchasing? Maybe, maybe not. It's just disappointing that you can have it in one area and not another, I think.
True.
Well, it is a V1 offering. So I guess like all things, it's likely to evolve, whether it's going to encompass more products or give us more kind of payment or term options in the future. We'll just have to wait and see. I guess your point, Johannes, about it favoring AWS databases. Of course, AWS are going to favor AWS databases because they want everybody to migrate from non-AWS databases to AWS databases. Yeah.
And something margins, something.
Yeah. Potentially this makes it more attractive for people to do so. But yeah, let's wait and see. And of course, they have no control over licensing costs, etc. as well. So if they were to do it for third-party databases, then they could be completely screwed if those licensing costs were to change. So yeah, it wouldn't make sense to offer it on those third-party databases, I guess.
Yeah, true.
I believe you mean they could be attached helically about an axis.
Screwed. I see. Yeah. 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 It was going to take me a while to unpick that one this time of day. But anyway, on that note, let's move along to our third article for this week. And this is an article all about EKS, which I know John hates, but he's going to talk about
it.
So this is the announcement that Amazon EKS capabilities for workload orchestration and cloud resource management, some new features that were launched last week. But these are actually pre-reInvent as well. Yes, this was the 30th of November. So
well, I think it's the second year or the third year where AWS has actually started to roll out a bunch of bigger reInvent features on the Sunday before reInvent. I think we had the same thing last year. The main reason for that is that gives you the possibility and the flexibility to also put the sessions in the catalog directly on Sunday without embargoing them. It gives a better possibility to spread them across the 5 days of reInvent, right? At least that's what the teams are telling me. that have been part of these announcements that went out on the Sunday, right? So I think that's well understandable, right?
Yeah. So yeah,
I
new
s- st-
EKS capabilities, orchestration and cloud resource management. Are you a big fan of EKS, Johannes?
I would say I'm a big user of EKS. I would love to hear John's take on this one first, because I've been working with the team on some of these, and I have some background information on this announcement. So I'm eager to see what John says, and then maybe I can add some color to that.
Yeah, I've not been a big Kubernetes user for a while, and it's rage bait. I tend to just sort of say screw Kubernetes quite a lot because it annoys people. It's rage bait. Generally, I found Kubernetes is one of those tools, and it's not the fault of CNCF or the maintainers who do phenomenal work for basically no money. It's the sort of tool that tech bros love to say, "Oh, we're using Kubernetes, therefore we must be modern." Whatever. I don't care. Do you really need all of that? Because it is something of a complicated tool, particularly if you're rolling it yourself, running it in your own kit. Fine. EKS generally takes a lot of that away. And I like this. I'm not a big user of it, but when I was last user of it, I was a big fan of Argo CD. And it's now effectively managed for you. Okay, Argo's not hard to install, but it's a cool tool. And from the quick skim I had of this article, you can just say manage capabilities. I'd like Argo, please. Done. Great. I'm all for that. I'm all for things doing more for you so you don't have to. Granted, this won't help you pass the Kubernetes certified, whatever it is, administrator, developer, whatever, because you still need to know how to worry about pod scheduling and all that malarkey. But, more managed, more better in my book, generally.
Okay, cool. I would say this announcement has more thunder than you have seen, John. I'll try to put some perspective into it. On the one side, it's another step from the AWS team to expand the capabilities of the control plane. That's the way that I look at that, right? So if you look at last year's EKS Auto Mode announcement, where they gave the possibility to manage the EC2 instance under the hood for EKS itself, that was a step in that direction already. Now they are expanding the control plane of Kubernetes to actually take over more responsibility than before, right? Yes, you're right. I can install Argo CD or ACK or Crow just with a simple Helm command. But I need to know how to do that. I need to know that I want to do that. And that is a limitation in terms of getting somewhere. Also, I need to then make sure that I keep the version up to date. I need to make sure that it actually runs. I need to implement alerts and all of that kind of stuff. So I see this as an additional step of changing the shared responsibility model for Kubernetes and putting more stuff on the liability of AWS. Of course, there's a few things that are not working, are not, let's say, fulfilling that, right? Because all of these capabilities will run on a certain node group that you need to instantiate as well, right? So they are visible somehow on your cluster as well. It's not like running on the control plane. So it's visible to you where they are, but still it's additional responsibility that AWS takes over. So at least that's the way that I look at that. And there's even more thunder. But before we go into that, did that make it more interesting, John? What do you think?
I'm still not going to use Kubernetes. No, not really.
Oh.
I don't have a reason to use it, is the thing, right? I don't have a reason to use it, and it's always a tool for the job. I would by and large lean into ECS more than EKS for containerized workloads, because what I build and develop doesn't need all of the extra features of Kubernetes. I can get a blue-green deploy with code deploy and ECS, and that's kind of all I really need.
And that's kind of correct. I get that. But there's too many organizations that think different, right? And I'm working in an organization that uses Kubernetes as well, which actually forces me to love Kubernetes or work with Kubernetes in general, right?
Tolerate.
Tolerate. And I think there's more thunder in this announcement, even than that. Like, it sounds like a small side note, but the two capabilities that have been announced here is ACK and Crow, in addition to the Argo CD one, right? So while Argo CD gives the possibility to directly implement GitOps, ACK and Crow expands the control plane of Kubernetes to then be able to also deploy AWS infrastructure from it. So that's a biggie, right? Because there is another open source tool that is called Crossplane that has been used in the industry or in most of the community for a very long time as well. Now, with Crow being announced last year from Google, Microsoft, and AWS at the same time, it is now an interesting thing that there is a managed service and endpoint that you can actually use. that actually means that AWS seems to be taking a side on this conversation around what do I use for compositions on the Kubernetes control plane. And I think that's the next level of thunder that gets into this one, right? So I think we're going to see these capabilities develop over the next weeks and months. We're going to see that they become more natural and that they become more powerful, and that potentially this also allows us in the future to expand the control plane responsibilities, right, to even more places, like using just the EKS control plane to manage Kubernetes clusters in different cloud providers might be the next level of integration that we could think of here, right? And I think it's pretty powerful from an announcement perspective.
That was the theory behind Google did that, didn't they? Anthos, I think it was. I guess that was the theory behind that. And I don't know what happened to that, but you don't hear about that anymore.
Well, you also have EKS anyway, don't you? I thought that's what that did.
Yeah, they also did that, right? But I think more general is the bigger organizations, and those are the ones that really need Kubernetes, right? Or really think that they need Kubernetes, John. So I'm on your side with ECS solves most of the problem, right? But a lot of organizations that think they need Kubernetes, they need these kind of capabilities as well, right? And the more chunk of operations or things that AWS can take from these organizations, it might be better for them, right? So at least that's my take on it, right? And I'm really inclined to see where this goes and to see what the next capabilities will be that might be added over there, right? I can think of other public open source resources, other open source things that might make sense, like permissions or policies or stuff like that is something that I would see as a next step for the capabilities, right? But with that, you really get it. It becomes simpler to manage those additional capabilities and those additional things that a lot of organizations are using, right? And I think this release is most likely initially targeted at small startups or people that are starting their Kubernetes journey. So I would envision it not to be production ready, but we'll see what happens with that. I didn't have a time to try it out yet. So yeah, well, I think it's pretty cool.
Hopefully you will get a chance to try it out. But back to my original question of, are you a big Kubernetes fan? You said you use it. You're forced to love it. So does that mean you're not a big Kubernetes fan, or are you a big? You don't have to answer it, by the way. If
well, I think that Kubernetes has a lot of power, Karl, right? And it has a lot of things that solves problems for a lot of the organizations. But I still have the opinion that there is only a very small portion of organizations that use Kubernetes that really need it. It has become kind of the go-to default for multi-cloud, and I still think it's not directly offering you multi-cloud, right? It gives you many possibilities to implement everything that cloud providers do by yourself if you want to, right? So pretty powerful, but not always needed, not always required.
Have you thought about a career in politics?
You have asked me that question last time we talked, Karl. So
perhaps it's inevitable. I do actually have a friend of mine in the US who's transitioned from tech to politics, so I can introduce you if you need it.
Yeah, that would be good. Maybe there's some money in that business. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it's about money. But anyway, moving swiftly on. We did promise that we would talk about AI because obviously it's pretty much all that AWS talked about last week. So there were 3 frontier agents announced during Matt Garman's keynote on Tuesday of last week. And the first of those, I'll tell you what all 3 were, and then we can talk about them in the order that I have these articles open. So there was the autonomous agent for Kiro, which we love. We talked about it on our previous episode. Well, John loves it. Ryan loves it. I haven't actually tried it myself. And then we've got the...
no, please don't. You and code sounds dangerous.
Yeah, I know. I need to get into this, don't I? And then start giving you things that I've created. So there's the autonomous agent for Kiro, there's the security agent, and the DevOps agent. So first of all, what the hell is a frontier agent? Let's talk about that. And then let's talk about the 3 frontier agents that got launched last week.
John, want to give it a try, or should I?
No, agentic anything scares me at this point, and I'm afraid to ask.
I'm so sorry for you. So it scares me the hell out of me as well, especially because the frontier agents are, at least the way that I look at them, it's the next level of making agents or making AI really do work for you. And I think that's the main thing. Like, it takes things that we have been playing around for a while. I think it takes that into production, right? Or tries to take that into production, giving the agents more power and more possibilities to do stuff. while I see that benefit in some of the directions, I can also see the challenges that it brings in others, right? So I think we're going to need to learn as an industry on how do we deal with that kind of stuff. The idea of calling that the frontier agents is pretty nice from an AWS perspective, I would say. I'm still thinking that most of the stuff is maybe a bit premature, right? But we can also, on the other hand, see that these are now the first things that we have been building with AI and with agentic AI that are really usable in a production environment and can directly help us to do stuff, right? So it's really, we've been seeing a lot of organizations playing around with AI, and this seems to now productionize that, right? And see the value and put some value in front of what it actually delivers. And I think we're going to need to try things out, and then we're going to get somewhere and identify where we're paying more than we get, right? And I think that's something that in industry is still unclear, right? So it's an interesting idea with the 3 different options that we have so far. And Jon, I know you don't love AI, but I've been playing around with it, right? With the 3 agents. Some of them I've been playing around with for a while already. Some of them I've just started last week. So happy to give some more details on how the different agents work that we have been announced last week. And
No, I'm a convert. I'm fully in bed with this now. I'm a complete convert. I was very skeptical sort of 6 months ago, but I did some stuff at ComSum, won the challenge coin that Karl loves to bring up at every opportunity because
that's I was very. Ever since he won the challenge coin, now he loves AI coding assistants.
Cool.
Yeah. I was very happy with myself because I only won by like 800 points out of a total score of about 32,000 or something. So it was very close. I was very proud of myself on that one. But no, I'm fully in bed with this now. I have recently paid with my own money, although I think we're having a conversation about that, for Kiro Pro because I was so impressed with it. I burned through, the free 50 credits and went, this is phenomenal, and then rebuilt my entire personal site Saturday afternoon in about 4 hours for about $4 worth of credits. But that I don't know how to do most of this, but I know how to kind of get it in the right area. It's a little bit worrying in that because, okay, I've been at this malarkey for over a decade now. I'm not a web developer, but I know enough to get myself into trouble. And this is the kind of the jab at the Karls of the world of you don't even know enough to get yourself into trouble. So you're just going to get into a big mess. And this is sort of the problem I think we're going to have. The fully autonomous agentic side of things, I don't think that's okay. It'll just go off and do more by itself is the way that I'm reading this. Work multi-repo, which is fantastic because if you're not in a mono repo, extra context, okay, cool. If you need to have front end and back end changes or whatever, and they're split between repos, great. Less context switching, you can give it a job and let it go off and do it. It might still get itself into those kind of loops that you find they get themselves into, though, where I can't solve this problem, so I'm going to go and look here, and then I'm going to go look over there, and then go look at the first thing again, and it just gets itself stuck. And it might sit there because if you've not sat there and kind of babysat it a little bit, it might sit there and just burn all your credits for you without you really noticing. So that's a concern. And I do wonder about the whole vibe-coded slop that we are seeing from people that don't have experience in putting applications into production go, that'll be fine. I don't know that it's going to solve for that either. Hopefully it does, because what I've seen from Kiro, and we'll talk about the other agents later, is when you give it a decent spec and you actually do the work up front, it does a really, really good job. So maybe it does, but it doesn't solve for knowing how to ask for things, knowing what good actually looks like and all that jazz.
So yeah, I guess my question would be, having done a special on Kiro the other week, I understand spec-driven development, and I understand it's going to go away and write the code for you. What's the agent doing that wasn't happening in Kiro before you had the Frontier?
The agent is pretty cool in the sense like I let the agent implement 5 features while I was at reInvent. So in that sense, like I showed I'm building a tool. I'm wipe coding a tool, Jon, that I've been using in production for 6 or 8 weeks now to do social media marketing for my content and stuff like that.
Yes, I've seen your LinkedIn spam.
Yeah, exactly. I think I've shown it to you. Also, that stuff is mainly vibe coded, and I showed that to a friend, actually to Torsten on Monday evening, and he said, "This is not nice. This is not nice. This is not nice. This is not nice." So when I finally got access to my to the autonomous agents during the Mad keynote on Tuesday, I took that input from Torsten that I had in Jira, copy pasted it into the agents, turned off my PC, and the day after I had everything finished. The day after, just because I didn't have time before that, right? So it was really like production grade ready in the sense of I was able to kick up that deployment chunk. It brought up a pull request. I could then iterate on the pull request in the same way that we know that from Q developer in GitHub or in GitLab, right? I was able to iterate on the code I created, and then I was able to merge that. Pretty powerful, right? On the other side, it's a bit overselling to put that to call this a Kiro autonomous agent because it reuses the same GitHub integration under the hood that we already had. The most powerful addition here is the memory context and the possibility to iterate throughout multiple repositories. John, I think you already mentioned that, right?
Yeah.
But the memory is going to be pretty powerful because this brings us one step closer to Kiro is my friend that I train to code in the way that I want to code and not in the way that the LLM wants to code, right? So I'm eager to see how that memory feature plays out and how I can use that. And yeah, pretty disappointed from the Kiro team that this is not integrated with the IDE yet. So a persona that talks in the IDE is a different persona right now than the one that uses Kiro autonomous agents. Yes, this is in preview, but this is the next step that I want to get to, right? I want the Kiro itself as a person, or maybe Ghosty as the mascot, right? That they have. That was all over the keynote, by the way. It was pretty fun. Want to have that one as a friend or person that learns how Johannes likes to code, right? That means if I say I want to run a serverless workload, it uses Lambda, and if John wants to run a serverless workload, it runs ECS, just because we're different persons, right? That idea is what I think is going to be very interesting, and I'm hoping that that is going to be coming soon as well.
It's a good point about the coding styles, because what I found is most of the LLMs, it's a very odd thing, but I've picked up on it and it bothers me. If you get it to write Terraform and you get it to do anything with IAM, it will do inline policies or policies attached to roles. It won't do the separate role definition, and it will still do lots of inline JSON. It's all really ugly. They all love to do that. All of them love to do that.
True.
And it's that, no, not best practice. And I'm only asking you to add a thing. You can see from my workspace that I've got loads of this in here already that doesn't do that. So why are you?
Yeah, true.
Well, you mentioned that Ghosty was all over the keynote, Johannes. You just reminded me. I forgot to bring this up earlier during the introductions. You were all over the keynote, were you not? I'm sure I saw your face come up on that big screen while Matt Garman was presenting the Kiro autonomous agent, the Frontier agent. And there was yourself, and I also spotted Danielle Heberling and a bunch of other AWS heroes who got some primetime screen time during the keynote. Did you know that was coming?
I knew.
Did you have to give your consent, or they
yes,
just?
Of course. I was hoping for a little bit more than just that, but it was a bit shorter than expected. The whole video was a bit shorter than expected. We invested kind of some time to get that brought together. But anyway, that's how it is, right? It was fun and was in the keynote. Not everyone can claim that from himself, right? So I think it was a good appearance, but not as much as I was hoping for at the end.
So no royalties, no AWS credits or Kiro credits for your appearance there.
No, not really.
Well,
but I was all over the keynotes. I was also at Werner's keynote, where we got this beautiful piece of this beautiful piece of swag, right? So there is like a diary. It's a beautiful thing. I'm gonna keep that and will never throw it away at the end, right? With some fun stuff, and the heroes were also mentioned in there. And at the end, like this thing was also visible there, right? Keep calm and carry on coding, right? This is what Werner's message was at the end. Like, we developers and engineers and architects, we shouldn't be worried about what's coming next. And I think that's important to remind ourselves in the area of AI, where, a lot of things seem to be interesting, I would say, and we don't yet know where this is all going and what's coming next.
So we're not all going to be out of a job. I think you need to put that on the door behind you so that it's visible in every video stream. But I'm conscious of time. We don't have a huge amount of time left, but I just wanted to quickly touch on the other two agents that were announced. We've got the security agent and the DevOps agent. So why should security engineers and DevOps engineers not be worried about security agents and DevOps agents?
Yeah, so the DevOps agent, the way that I looked at it, is pretty powerful in terms of analyzing data that you have in your account and analyzing stuff. It also helps you if you connect it to your source code repository to spot potential problems in your code. But especially also it goes through the different CloudFormation, CloudWatch log files and stuff like that. You can even connect it to Datadog and Dynatrace, I believe, to also analyze those alerts and findings. It seems to reduce the time required to analyze issues, right, that you have in your application, but obviously only for stuff that runs on AWS. It's pretty interesting how they integrated that, and I need to admit that the UI that they have for the DevOps agent looks pretty nice, so at least you should try to have a look. And I already used that in problem incident that I had on my tool last week, and it showed valid results, and it actually gave me a hint. So it's not just bloatware, I would say. I think this is pretty solid as an initial release. So I would encourage you to try that one out, especially for incident analysis. I'm not happy with the name, however, right? Because we're misusing the term DevOps as a person that does operations,
I've been having that argument with people for years and years and years and years and years, and I've given up. I've given up. DevOps is not a job. It's not a job title. It's a culture. It's a way.
Which is why I talked to the person that owns the agents and told them that this name is like not the one that we want, right? It's an operations agent right now, right? It's not a DevOps agent. And I've asked, but the answer was, there's so much more to come that will empower you to do real DevOps with that agent. And the more that I integrate that DevOps agent in all of your workflow, you will understand why it is named like that. I would say, I said, okay, then don't release it if it's not ready. But anyway, it does a lot of things already. It's not yet all of the does not yet cover all of the DevOps things, right? That you and I think about, John. And I think definitely also it cannot replace the culture aspect of DevOps. And I think that's what I didn't like about that one.
I like the agent. I like the concept of the agent. One of the things on my list of things to worry about over the next sort of 6 to 18 months is automating remediation to incident responses, right? Because if I must have done something horrible in a past life, but I have to get up 1 week out of 3, when the phone rings, and, so does some of the other guys in the team. And we all hate it. It's all horrible. No one enjoys being woken up at 4 o'clock in the morning because, sorry, your Redis cluster has run out of memory because your eviction strategy is wrong. No one likes being woken up by that, but these things happen. If I can have a tool that handles that sort of thing for me, this has been on my list of, I need this, I need to buy it, I need to build it, I need something that does this for me. More better. PagerDuty has an answer to that. They have their own, if you pay them loads of money, they have their own kind of version. And if you don't pay them lots of money, you can integrate it with Rundeck, or you can pass things back to custom things through SSM and what have you. But if I don't have to write lots of that, great. The worry I have is where this is getting its data from, because if you're having to feed in your runbooks on how to solve these problems, then that's going to be hot garbage, because most runbooks in SRE functions are just, it was in my head, I worked it out. Sorry.
Yeah, well, you can connect all kind of stuff already. I think you can connect GitHub, GitLab right now, and Jira potentially. And I don't know if Confluence is already supported, but I can see that this is going to be expanded to all data sources that Amazon Q offered, which was a pretty immense list, right? At least that's what I'm hoping for. And but I get your point. At the end, we need to make it as smart as possible, right? And you can actually extend Kiro autonomous agents with MCP servers already, I think, and you potentially you can also do that for the DevOps agent, right? So there's a lot of potential. I think, as I mentioned, we need to make sure that we see and we showcase the value of this agentic AI concept, and only if we manage to do that, we will see that it really creates some additional stuff value for us, because I'm also unsure right now.
Yeah, I mean, I like this because it calls out that it can respond to events in PagerDuty, which means I don't have to rework my entire workflow. I don't have to worry about service users and all that malarkey. I can, ideally, if I could just integrate it and it can go and act the alert before someone gets woken up by it, that solves a lot of my problems for me.
And that is correct, yeah.
Well, there we go. The future is here. The future was announced at reInvent last week. The future seems to be us all orchestrating a whole bunch of frontier agents.
That very nearly
across
turned
the
into a
different aspects
advert
of
for a
IT.
phone network from the early 2000s.
Yeah, well, they don't
the
exist
future is
anymore,
orange,
do they?
but they don't exist
I've
anymore.
I've always liked the color orange. They do exist, don't they?
No. In some countries, maybe, yeah, but in the UK, Orange and T-Mobile merged with each other and became EE.
Anyway, let's
Very
not talk
niche
about
piece of
mobile phone
reference
networks. So yeah, but I'm very conscious that we have reached the end of our time for this episode, season 4, episode 45 of Logicast. Our recap of some of the reInvent announcements with Johannes, who was fortunate enough to be able to attend reInvent himself last week. So really appreciate you coming on again for the 4th time, Johannes, to share your insights on some of the key announcements from last week's AWS conference. And of course, Jon, really appreciate you joining us as well to share the latest on your foot injury and karate successes.
Get the medals back in shot. There we go.
Okay. The challenge coin.
I didn't win them for fighting people.
Anyway, that really is all we have time for season 4, episode 45 of Logicast. If you have listened this far, thank you very much for joining us. If you did enjoy it, please give us a review and tell your friends. We are available to download from wherever you download your podcasts. And of course, if you'd like to see people appearing and disappearing, as seems to be the case with recent episodes, you can check that out on our YouTube channel at Logicata. We will be back next week with another episode for you. I think some more reInvent loveliness. But until then, thanks for listening, and we'll see you again next time. Cheers, guys.
Bye, everyone.